Welcome to the Biz Bash podcast, where we make biz strategy a piece of cake. I'm Elizabeth.
And I'm Cami, but you might know us better as Eliza and Calligraphy and Cami Monet. We want to help you, our fellow stationers, artists, and calligraphers, confidently build a profitable and personality-driven creative biz.
We're here to share our honest-to-goodness advice and actionable strategies for ambitious artists.
So put on your party hat, quit being a procrastinator gator, and let's get this party started.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Biz Birthday Bash podcast. This week is another wonderful week where we are featuring another guest on the podcast. And this time we're featuring Andrea Alvarez Reno. And we are so excited to have her here today. Andrea actually reached out and pitched this episode to us, which is wonderful. So she's been a listener for a while. And she had an idea to do this episode. And we said, you know what? That would be absolutely awesome, because Andrea has experience starting businesses in not only different cities in the US, but different countries as well, because she is originally from Honduras. Is that correct, Andrea? And Honduras is where you had your business?
Yes, that's where I was born. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So before we dive into all of the questions that we have for her, I am going to read Andrea's official bio so that we can learn a little more about her, because you guys, Andrea is a superstar. She's super cool. Just get ready to listen to all of these things she's accomplished. So here we go. Andrea was born in Honduras, Central America, where she started as a self-taught cake artist. Right after graduating college with a bachelor's degree in business and industrial administration, she opened her first cake studio. 4 years after opening the business, she wanted professional training, which led her to obtaining a certification in cake designing at the world-renowned The French Pastry School in Chicago, where she studied under some of the biggest names in the industry, such as Sebastian Canone. And you'll have to forgive me because I might mess up these people's names, Andrea. You can correct me.
I get it.
Yes, Jacques Pfeiffer and Nicholas Lodge. And a year later, Andrea got engaged and moved to the US for good. In Chicago, she has worked as lead cake artist in 2 of the most prestigious cake studios in the city. And she has done cakes for many celebrities and has been on TV shows for the Food Network and the Cooking Channel. And if that's not enough, y'all, Andrea also has a calligraphy business on the side that she started, and she's self-taught. And she started it 10 years ago back in Honduras after finding a book in her university's bookstore. And she's been doing lettering since before she can remember, so long before that. And after moving to the US, she immediately started taking professional classes with some of the biggest in the industry, such as David Grimes. Oh, goodness. This is another name. I'm going to skip that one. Harvest Crittenden, John Stevens, Elmo Van Slingerland and Mike Gold, several others, really big names. And she started expanding her knowledge of letters and discovering new interests like illumination and illustration. She's also a self-taught painter and illustrator and has had the opportunity of illustrating a book and working with brands like Crayola, Netflix, Cartier, and others. Seriously, so cool. Today, you're welcome. Andrea owns Andrea Reno Calligraphy and Cakes and serves the wedding and event industry with confections and calligraphed paper goods, but is also in the process of opening a pizza and pastry cafe in downtown Chicago alongside her husband, where she will be selling custom confections. So basically, Andrea's the coolest.
I have a pretty boring life, honestly.
Yes. Welcome to the episode. We can't wait to talk to you kind of about all the craziness and challenges that come from starting businesses in multiple different locations and moving between continents and countries and all this stuff. So
yeah, I mean, you know you're cool when you hang out with all these people that we can't even pronounce their names. Like, we can't even. I was like, I'm so thankful Elizabeth is reading this, because I would just butcher that so hard. But yes, I can't believe. So you guys are also opening a pizza and pastry cafe too? Like, how do you find the time? I am just
my God. Yeah, it's just been crazy. My husband's a pastry chef and a chef. And after he lost his job because of the pandemic, he decided that's it. I'm not getting another job. We're opening a place. And I've been waiting 7 years for that. So those were our plans when we were dating. but it never happened. And I kind of had to accept, okay, maybe he doesn't want to have a business. It's okay. I'll do my own. But now he does. And so I'm separating the cakes from my calligraphy business. The cakes will pass to the cafe. Like I said, he's a chef also, so he'll be doing pizzas. We'll be doing also pastries and cakes by order. And the calligraphy business will be on its own.
Wow. So many moving pieces, but really fun in the same way. I feel like I'm kind of similar. Like, I like having things that keep me on my toes. I like having change and a variety of things to work on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't know. I just can't work on the same thing for many days. I get bored and then I have to, oh, I miss making a cake, so I'm going to do a cake, and I'm just like that. And it's weird. And I've had to struggle with that, but I guess it's just the way I am.
Yeah, it's the way I am too. So I get it. You're definitely not alone.
Well, it's funny because I know you mentioned on one of your episodes that you are a type A, or what is the Enneagram though? Number 1, is it?
Yeah, I think I'm a 1 if I remember correctly. Sometimes I feel like it changes, but yes.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, I'm a 1 too. And every time you say something, I'm like, oh, I relate to her so much.
Yeah, it's like not being able to make a decision ever because everything is interesting.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and let Cami start us off with our formal questions for you, Andrea, because we have a lot to talk about.
Okay,
Sure.
I will start being all formal. But first, I just have to say that your work is so beautiful. All your cakes, your calligraphy, everything is just fantabulous. I'm just like such a fan. Okay, so formal question. Obviously, you've had businesses in so many different locations. What situation has been the hardest to restart in and why?
Oh, God. That had to be when I first moved here. It was so out of my comfort zone. I had to close my business in Honduras when I was moving here. I knew it couldn't stay open. So it was just closed. And then when I moved here, I had to relearn everything. Everything. I mean, from, how to talk to people, the laws here, and then the laws changed by city. So that was also challenging. And then I was so afraid of taxes also. I didn't want to jeopardize my residency in any way. So I was like super careful of things. But then I didn't jump into a business as soon as I moved. Being a perfectionist, I just couldn't. I was like, I have to learn everything first before I even try. So that's why I got a job. And in that job, I learned what people wanted, what the standards are.
Mm-hmm.
You have to keep this in mind. I come from a country where people usually feel not good enough versus what's going on here in the States. I think every country in Latin America is pretty much not, I don't want to say defined, but influenced a lot by whatever happens here in the US.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I thought, God, am I gonna be as good as the people there, right? Because I didn't have any training. We don't have schools like that. We didn't have a cake school. We didn't have art schools. There's very little museums, so nothing to train you or to get you ready, right? So I knew that coming here, I was gonna have to get to that level first, and I think I was doing pretty good, but my confidence definitely was not there. And so anyway, so that's why I got to go to the French pastry school, and that helped me a lot. It showed me the American way of doing cakes because it's definitely super different than how we do it in Latin America. So that helped a lot. But then on the calligraphy side, also I had never ever taken a class, so I didn't know about guidelines. I was using the wrong nib, so many things, but I was just doing it, right? So I started taking classes and taking classes, and that was my obsession. I had to be as good as the best here. And yeah, so that's how it went. But then, just having to go out and meet people for networking and all of that. That was super scary. I knew English since I was in preschool, but the conversation, I didn't have a lot of practice. Obviously, we speak Spanish in my country. So speaking to a potential client in English was nerve-wracking. It was like, oh my God, I hope I don't mess up. I hope I didn't say the wrong thing. I hope I didn't sound like the typical stereotype of aggressive Latina, so all those things.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I think it's so funny too that you were like, I went to French pastry school to learn the American way of making cakes. It's just funny. But no, I can imagine that would be very intimidating and just like a little bit of a culture shock. I can't imagine, coming to a new country and just being like, okay, I want to learn. And you're like, oh, there's so many possibilities here. I got to step up my game.
Yeah. I mean, I had no idea that a Yampeth existed. I had no idea what a master penman was. And, back then, before I moved, because I've been here 7 years now, before I moved, social media wasn't as big, at least in my country. And so I didn't have any social media presence, business wise, right? So when I come here and I start like looking up and all these things, I find all these people that are doing unbelievable work that I didn't even know existed. I had no idea what illumination was. So then you get obsessed, right? Like, oh, this exists. Now I have to learn it. And so that's why you were saying like, oh God, but I also have to be better at cakes. So it was like all day. Thank God I don't have kids. So I have a lot of time to invest on this.
Yeah. So you kind of talked about earlier how you don't want to do the same thing for like for amount of days. You're like, oh, I got to switch between. Do you ever think like one day that maybe like the cakes would take over or the calligraphy would take over, or what do you kind of see with that?
Oh, wow. It's a hard one. Before, my day used to be from 8 to 6 or 10. I was working a lot back then too. But anyway, so during the day I would make cakes and then I would go home and do calligraphy. So then it became the same here because I had a job at a bakery. So I would be there 12, 14 hours and then I would come home and do some calligraphy. So then when I opened the business in Boston, it changed again and I was doing more calligraphy than cakes. But now with opening the cafe, it's going to go back to that same place again. I'm going to be doing mostly cakes during the day. And then in all my spare time, I'll do calligraphy. I just think that there's a lot more demand for cakes. And, we still have to pay the bills. So I think that's what's determining the decision there, mostly.
Some people ask me, they're like, so what inspires you to do this painting? Like they used to ask my dad this question. He's an artist. They'd be like, what inspired you? And he's like, well, every day I walk outside and I go to my mailbox and I open it up and there's a bill right there and I get really inspired, So that's just always kind of stuck with me. I know, he's a nut. Okay, yeah. So we kind of talked about, you kind of mentioned opening a shop in Boston. I know this is a very Elizabeth question because she just loves like behind the scenes of how like things actually work, logistics of everything. So can you tell us a little bit about like the paperwork and, kind of logistical legal things you had to fill out for each location when you were actually opening up your business?
Wow. So back in Honduras, my uncle is a lawyer, so he did most of it. I'm going to say that the 3 times I've had to do it, 2 of the times I'm just hiring someone. So I'm not dealing with that a lot. But yeah, back there's this document called like business constitution. It looks more like a deed of a house. So that's very formal. So he did all of that. And then it was required to register with the Chamber of Commerce and get all the tax papers ready. But it wasn't too hard. Then in Boston, I didn't fully legalize it, but I did register with the city. So I was living in a city called Everett, which is like, basically it's like a neighborhood of Boston. It's like 10 minutes away from downtown. So you register with each city, right? but each city has their laws, obviously. And this one did allow you to make cakes from home. So I just went to City Hall and got it registered, and it was super easy. They just ask you, what do you do? And then because I was selling food, then somebody from the sanitation department had to come to my house to basically say the kitchen is okay for making cakes. But then the pandemic happened. So that guy never got to come to my place.
Wait, yeah, so what happened? Like because he couldn't come, what happened? What did you do?
Well, the good thing is that because I had worked in bakeries, I already have a ServSafe certification, which basically certifies you to handle food, and it teaches you how about bacteria and things like that. And also because I had the business, I had all the equipment I needed. So I just continued to make cakes, and the wedding planners, they knew that I was working from home. It's also it changes by location. Like in Boston, it was very, very much okay. Like people didn't care that much if you were doing things from home. In fact, I'm gonna say that most of the people I met that were making cakes were doing it from home. I did go to see commercial kitchens, but they were just so dirty. It was so disgusting. I was like, I can't. I mean, they would like try to get me to make a cake next to a table full of bloody meat. So it was like not gonna happen. So I knew that my house was gonna be a lot safer. And yeah, so that's how it happened. But then in Chicago, that's not allowed. The cottage laws are very, very strict. So from home here in Chicago in the last 5, 6 months, because we moved back in December. So during this time, I've only been selling cookies, which there's no milk involved, so it makes it a lot easier. I mentioned milk because it's milk that grows bacteria and could make someone sick.
Oh, interesting. So it's like it's permissible to do the cookies because they don't have milk as an ingredient, so they're not worried about that?
Yeah, I haven't really like looked it up because, like I said, this is not gonna go on forever. We're opening a shop.
Yes.
Everything's gonna be made from there. So I haven't really invested because it's pointless to invest in trying to get this kitchen certified here. And I already know that because the laws are so strict here, they're not gonna let me sell more than one cake, for example, or something like that. But cookies
Okay.
are only flour, butter, and sugar. So they're just safer to sell. So I don't worry about anybody suing me or something like that.
Yeah.
And yes, I wouldn't worry even with a cake because I know everything's very, very strict here when it comes to hygiene. But yeah, that's why. And oh god, I forgot the question.
No, you're doing so great because we were just following up and asking about like the paperwork that you were filling out for each location and the legality of things because you've just done it in so many different cities before. And so you answered everything great.
Okay. And then here in Chicago, since we're dividing the business, so the cake will be part of that cafe. So for that, we have been working with a lawyer that we're hiring because obviously it's a bigger business. It's a lot of money involved and a lot more liability. We're in downtown Chicago, you know what I mean? So there's a lawyer for that. She's doing everything, but then we also hired a accountant an accountant, and so he will do our taxes, and he did the registering the LLC, and it was so easy. We paid him $800, and in 2 days he sent the papers back and it was done.
Yeah. Worth it.
Totally worth it because we were like working on the business plan, so it was like no time. At the same time, I'm working on my calligraphy business, so that I am registering. But again, because I have so much going on, I just hired our tax lady. She does that too, and I'm paying her $400, and she's taking care of it. Oh, and we're selling chocolates too. It's a lot. If you want it not to confuse you, we're selling. It's a cafe where you'll be able to sit down, have pizza, and have dessert. And if you want to get some chocolates, you can. And if you want to get a cake for your next party, you can.
Oh my gosh. This is like the dream right there. Pizza, cakes, chocolates. I'm going to tell my husband, like, we got to go to Chicago. Okay. Oh, you know what? My cousin is moving to Chicago, so I'm going to have her go send me something. Okay. So getting back around to questions.
Let me know so we can give her some treats.
Yes, I love it. Okay, well, let's talk more about setting up your shop in Chicago. What steps have you really taken so far to get everything set up? What are some of the things you're doing?
Yeah, so when we moved back, the first thing I did was change the website. I was so stressed about that because you know how long it takes for the SEO to get somewhat good. And I don't know a lot about that, but that was the first thing. And it actually worked because some of my clients have been finding me through Google. But then the next thing I knew I had to do was get back on my guild's membership. So Chicago has like a huge, one of the biggest calligraphy guilds in the country. And I have to say it's the best one. So they have a members page, and I knew from years ago that a lot of my clients would find me there. So I knew I had to get that again. So now I'm back on the membership list. I'm sorry, on the members list. So those two steps. And like I said, I hired this person to register the business, and networking. That was the other big thing. But that hasn't been going so good because the COVID restrictions here in Chicago were super, super strict. We lived most of the pandemic in Boston, and it wasn't as strict as here. So I didn't know if people wanted to meet, but I have reached out. So I've made a few connections on Instagram, and they've sent work. But mostly the work I'm getting right now, it's either from a past client referral or a vendor referral from Boston or somebody I made a connection with on Instagram.
That makes sense for sure. I mean, it takes a lot of time to build that back up, especially like post pandemic, as we're still coming out of COVID and things, people are trying to kind of find their footing and find their stride again. I mean, it's going to take time to do all of that. I mean, networking was hard enough before the pandemic happened. And so then it just gets like exponentially harder with that kind of thrown in there. So, but it sounds like you're taking some great steps.
Yeah, that was actually one of the things when moving here. Most businesses start with word of mouth. Some friend that bought something from you, some family members, and I didn't have one single person. That worked out great back in Honduras. That's how I built my business, and I got to number one and all of that, but everybody knew me. But here it was like, who's going to buy anything from me? Nobody knows me. They're not going to get any referrals from me. So I knew I had to go out, swallow my pride and my scary feelings, and network, right? So that was super scary. And then you have to do it in a second language. So it was like, oh, but I have to do this. I think the dream is bigger than the fear. I think that's what gets me going.
I love that.
I love that too.
I just want that on my wall.
I know. Put that on a cake and calligraphy. I'll tell you what, it'll sell like hotcakes.
The dream is bigger than the fear. I love it. That's so great, Andrea. Okay, so speaking of kind of like, that's a good transition to talk a little bit about the fears that creatives have with starting a business and putting themselves out there. So can you tell us, what are some of the biggest hurdles you've had to overcome in your multiple businesses and moves? Like, what are some of the things that have been hardest for you, but obviously things that you have been able to overcome?
Wow. Oh, wow. So the first time I opened the business, the one I had in Honduras, I had to struggle even with family members. I didn't come from a household where my parents were like, you can do this. I didn't even grow up with my dad. So I didn't have that, right? The parents telling you, you're great and you can do this and you can do whatever you want. I don't know where it came from, but I always tell myself like that. Nobody has anything over me. I can do whatever I want. I can be as great as I want. I can be as great as the greatest. But I just know I have to work hard for it. So that wasn't like a big, like I know a lot of art entrepreneurs have that, like, am I good enough? But I guess I didn't have that. So that was a good positive thing for me. I just knew I was going to do it. And I always had an entrepreneurial spirit, I guess. Everybody in my family is an entrepreneur. I think maybe one person had a job for somebody else, but everybody else had their own businesses. So I guess that helped, right? But the thing is that at that point, and this is very personal, but I guess I'll share it because I know a lot of people might go through this. Right before opening that shop, I had another business with my mom first. And in that business, we were selling floral arrangements and cakes. So I would be doing the cakes, and my mom would be doing the florals because that's her passion, the florals. So then we get in a fight because we never had a good relationship. And we get in a fight. I end up leaving the business. I was like, I'm done. I'm not going to work here anymore. So, yes, I decided I was going to start my business, which was going to be focused on cakes. So I had to go back to her and I had to tell her, I am starting this business and I'm selling cakes. But she was still trying to sell cakes, even though she didn't know how to make them. So she was the first hurdle I had to overcome because she basically told me, you don't have my blessing and you can't do this. But, I just like told her, well, this has been my dream my whole life, so I'm still going to do it. And so I basically had to go against my mom's will. In Latin American families, family is so important, and religion, and some family members might use God against you, like, oh, you're not obeying your mom, so God is gonna punish you, or things like this, right? So I didn't pay attention to that. I just started the business, and years later, she got over it, and she was like, "I'm so proud of you." So we mended that. But that was the first one, I must say, and I guess it's a very hard one because it's so close to the heart, right?
Yeah. I'll say real quick too, like, I'm really glad that you were willing to open your heart and share that with our audience because that happens sometimes when parents don't give a blessing or they're not encouraging or they're not supportive of a child's journey. And I feel like we've been lucky with our audience or with the people we've interviewed so far that most of them are like, yeah, I always had encouragement. But that's not always the case for a lot of people. And so I think people will be able to relate to you. So thank you for thanks for sharing a more personal story for sure.
Yeah, on the other side, I did have my best friends and my uncle, who is like my dad. They were like, "Oh, you got this. We're here for you. You have to do it. Don't pay attention to your mom." And so they were definitely my rock. And then, the second biggest hurdle back then was I was self-taught. And so I'm opening
Mhm.
a cake shop where I'm handling food where you could potentially make someone sick. Or, I'm making a 3-tier cake and that cake might collapse if I don't know how to build it right. And then how do you make a cake 30 minutes before the wedding, right? So it was like super stressful. But again, the dream was bigger. So I just pushed and I started getting books and learning. Then again, it all went great. The business got really good. I was doing great. I was like, wow, I made it. It's going to get better and better. But then eventually I looked for more professional training. So that was fixed. And then the second biggest thing happened, or the third, I guess, by this time, which was, oh, you have to move. So I met my husband in pastry school. And so I went back to my country, and I went back to work. And then 7 months later, on his second visit, we got engaged. And so closing that business was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do because it was my baby, right? It was like I coming from a person that didn't have that close family, or somebody telling you you're great, that business was my way of telling myself, hey, you're great, you're doing good in life. So closing it was definitely one of the hardest things. And yeah, and then moving here and going through all of that, I mean, it was just so much. It was like I knew I wanted to have a business again. And so going through those feelings, but then also trying to adapt to a new city, and not a small city, it's a huge city and it's so cold. And trying to adapt to that was so depressing. And on top of that, trying to adapt to this new person in my life, right? We were getting married. And so you're also new to it, to a marriage. So it was so much. But I got through it. And then in Boston, I'm going to say it was more exciting. It was like, oh, because see, before I started that business in Boston, which is the same business I have right now, I just moved it. But before starting it, I got a job because it got scary, the financial situation. When we were moving there, we thought we were going to be fine. But Boston is so crazy expensive that months later, I was like, oh, no, I have to get a job. So I got a job, and it was the worst experience in my life. I feel like I hit rock bottom. It made me realize, like, you can't keep wasting your life in these stupid jobs. So I told my husband, I'm going to start my business, and you're going to have to be supportive. And
I like that you're like, I'm going to do this and you must support me, as a good husband should. But I love how you phrased that. It made me giggle.
And he totally did. But, the husbands are asked for support. So I was like, okay, now it's your turn. Right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I think at that point there was more excitement. But the thing is that the pandemic happened 4 months later after I started. So I registered the business. I started networking. I was going to NACE events, and I was meeting with wedding planners, and I was meeting with stationers. I was donating stuff. I was like, I'm ready to do this. I'm going to do this. And then the pandemic happened. So I'm going to say that might have been one of the hardest. But yeah, and now in Chicago, it hasn't been hard, honestly. I think because I had a social presence already, a social media presence, I mean, that has made it easier. So right now it's just been busy and happiness.
Oh, that's so good. I'm so happy to hear that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You've had so many like major hurdles, but you're like, but you know what? I got through it and now we're doing this. And I love the positivity you have behind everything, and just like sharing so many of these huge hurdles that, I mean, like, I can imagine having to close my business and move somewhere else, like literally starting from ground zero again. Like, not only is that hard, but just like emotionally, it would be really hard too. And you're saying it's a new country. I mean, it's just like, I just can't imagine. I can see why that was a huge hurdle.
Yeah. And, people would tell me like, but you're not starting from zero because you are better at your craft. But it's like, yeah, but doesn't really help, because you could be not so great and have a lot of work, like the skill doesn't really transfer into having sales. The thing that changed everything for me was networking, having people know me and knowing what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, if I'm a good person, if I'm a professional when you work with me, things like that. Because and I actually posted one time on Instagram, oh, and actually this is going to take me to the race thing, because I feel like it did have some effect, the fact that I'm an immigrant and I'm Latino and I'm from Honduras. And I actually posted one time when the whole George Floyd thing was happening, and I read something somebody said about how the industry is mainly dominated by white women, right? And I was like, oh wow, I never thought of that, and I hope that's not what's happening to me. And I posted something on social media saying like, wow, I really hope that that's not the case. But it makes me wonder, because I have been trying for years to get in the industry, and I know it's not lack of talent. And then I started getting messages, and they were like, they wanted to start working with me. So I definitely think that what happened with George Floyd kind of opened some people's hearts, or not their hearts, but maybe like the way
Awareness.
awareness, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and to wow, I didn't realize I was doing that. Because believe me, I have tried to find other Latino women in the industry, but I just can't find them.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's like super hard because my tactic is, when I moved the first time and when I did it in Boston, and same again, one of my tactics was, I'm gonna buy all the wedding magazines, and I'm gonna look up who's in there, right? So that way I know who are the best in the industry, because I want to work with the best. That was always the main goal. Be the best, work with the best. And so I would look up in the magazines, and I couldn't find anybody from my race, or not that I was looking, because honestly, in Honduras, we don't have that racial problem so much. So I wasn't aware of it either until I came here. And I was like, oh, wow, I can't believe this country works like that. And so, it just makes you more aware again of how things work. I don't know why I deviated to that, what we were talking about.
No, I mean, it's okay because like it's an important part of your story and your experience as an entrepreneur. And so it's good for our audience to hear that those differences exist in one way or another, or that for you that was a moment that was difficult to see all those names, and you're like, I'm having a hard time finding someone in this industry who can relate to my culture and my background and who I am. So
Right.
no, that's totally fine that you shared. If it's okay, I'll go ahead and ask you the next question, which is a little more lighthearted. So I feel like a little weird transitioning to it. But if you're ready, like, I'll ask you the next one.
My husband says I tend to get dramatics. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, oh my gosh, Andrea, oh my goodness, that's not dramatic at all. I just don't want you to feel bad that the next question I'm asking is going to feel really like lighthearted compared to what you were sharing, because you were sharing your heart.
No, not at all. I just guess I feel like people should know that these things do happen, and they're not alone. I've gone through it, but it's okay. Like, most people are very nice people.
Yes,
Yeah.
Absolutely. But we still have to be aware of that. Absolutely. Okay, so my next question for you, which is less serious. I was seeing all of these like huge names of people that you've worked with, right? That you've been on these TV shows and worked with celebrities and holy cow, I was thinking to myself, like, the pressure and the stakes for this must be so high. So do you feel like the stakes of running your business is higher when you're working with such big names, or do you feel like that's not the case?
I don't feel like that's the case, because, it's a representative from their marketing department, and they send you the paperwork and they hire you. They've already seen the pictures. They already know they like the work, and that's it. But I don't feel like that person would go on Yelp or would badmouth you, like, they're bigger corporations, right? Like, maybe they don't have time. I don't know what it is, but I feel like your regular client, the regular citizen person, that person can go to Google and write the meanest thing. So I feel like they have more power, definitely.
Right.
Yeah, what do you think?
No, that's such a good point, because I never would have thought of it that way, because I would have been like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous to be working with this big name. But like, let's say it's like Gordon Ramsay or something, he's not going to go, you're right, he's not going to go to Google or Facebook and be like, Andrea did X, Y, and Z. Like, that would be so tacky and weird.
Yeah, plus you're forgetting the fact that Andrea is the best, Elizabeth, so she's not going to get a bad review.
Exactly, obviously.
Well, hopefully. I think anybody can get a bad review. That somebody might be in a bad mood, and you never know.
Yeah, then, you just never know.
Yeah, and then working with the Food Network, that was actually in their benefit. So, it was more us doing the. Obviously, you get like the brief fame moment if you're on a TV show, but it's mainly for their benefit, and they're the ones making the money, and so they wouldn't
Yeah.
really affect your business in any way. Yeah.
That's so true.
So, along with all these awesome people you've worked with, can you tell us about who your favorite artist or baker to learn from was?
Oh, wow. That has to be my mentor, Nicholas Lodge. So he was my instructor at the French pastry school. And he's a celebrity in the cake world. He is royalty. I mean, and literally, he has made cakes for Queen Elizabeth. And he basically invented tools and techniques that we use today, that most cake artists use today. And I had the amazing blessing that he was my mentor. And because he was co-workers basically with my husband, we also became friends. So definitely him. He's just amazing at what he does. Amazing. Like everything, he's just an amazing craftsman. Like he doesn't use tools and things. He with his hands he builds things, and I think that's very admirable.
So, yeah, for us who are not cake people, when you say that he is building things with his hands instead of using tools, can you give examples of maybe what are some tools that bakers are using that Nicholas is not, just so we can like visualize and understand?
Absolutely. For example, it's a technique I do a lot. It's called piping. So basically, you have an icing bag and you do these decorations on a cake, right? So,
Yeah.
so he is amazing at it. Nowadays, there's actually silicone molds that you can find, and you just fill them with fondant, and you have that same decoration with the simplicity of a mold. But he will actually make it with his hands, which is also what I do. So I admire that a lot, because
Okay.
you might not be able to have those molds in hand. You should be able, as an artist, to create it without the use of tools.
That makes sense. That's a great example because I was like, I think I can maybe visualize what she's saying, but because I don't have a lot of any cake making experience besides like in my own kitchen with a mixture out of a box.
It's kind of like, let's think of it in calligraphy terms. It's kind of like, are you able to do calligraphy without any sheet underneath your paper? Or are you tracing calligraphy? You know what I mean? Like, are you tracing the letters, or can you make a letter?
Yes. Oh, that's perfect. Now my brain is like, oh.
Right? It's not the same. So yeah, I appreciate that a lot from him. And in the calligraphy world, I think my hero is Harvest Crittenden. I just love her. I love everything she does. I love that she's a woman and such an important woman in that industry.
I think I've heard her name before recently for sure because Harvest is a very unique name. And so I think that came up somewhere. So I'll have to go check on Instagram again to see all her work and everything.
She's one of the few master penmen. So maybe that's why.
Oh, yes. Okay. Then I have heard of her if she's one of the master penmen. That's so cool. Okay, so switching gears a little bit, let's talk a little bit about your illustration deal that you had. So can you just tell us a little bit more about how you got involved with that and how it went?
Yeah, that was super exciting project. Something I had never done before, and that once again I just had to overcome my fears. But it was through a stationer friend that I met at a NACE event, and one day during the lockdown, her client wanted to self-publish. So her client contacts her and she's like, can you help me get this book ready, right? So my friend contacts me and she's like, listen, the book is going to have some illustrations, but this one, actually it was 4 illustrations. It was a scenery of a tree and it was supposed to change through the seasons. So spring, fall, and it was the same scenery that we would have to change, right? So you would see, snow in one, and then the other one more grown flowers in the summer, things like that. And she was like, "Do you want to do it?" And I was like, "Oh, I've never done it, but yeah, I'll do it." And I did it, and it was very stressful. but I would just like sit and I would be like, you can do this. Just think. and, and I would just like, okay, think, observe. And I did it. It was a line drawing. It wasn't watercolor. I think it would have been easier if it had been watercolor for me because I had been working with it, but it was all pen and ink. So the shading and all of that was very stressful. I was buying books and reading things to get me ready for that. And yeah, that's how it went. And then, the book got printed, and a few weeks later it was selling on Amazon, and it was great. My family was very proud, and very, very good experience.
Good. Oh, that's so great to hear. And so you didn't have an agent then, it doesn't sound like. This was like a friend of a friend or a connection.
Yeah, it was once again one of those networking events that I did. I met this friend, and she did beautiful with the book. It was great. It was letterpressed. It was gorgeous. And that's how it worked. Yeah. No, I don't have an agent. I wish I had, but I think I would need to do maybe more illustrations to get an agent, but I'm more of, I guess I get more calligraphy work, and I just incorporate my illustrations or paintings into my calligraphy work.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, Andrea, I think we're kind of getting close to wrapping up here. I think some of the questions we didn't ask, but that they still got covered, and we answered a lot of great things. I think people are really going to relate to you if they've ever had to move between cities or move between countries. Like, I'm so glad that you initiated this episode with us because we haven't had someone be able to enlighten us in this way specifically about like how hard it can be, especially coming to the US when you're not originally from here, to start your business and run your business. And congrats on everything you've accomplished and done, though. Like, it is absolutely amazing. You should be so proud and so excited of all the things you've done. It's really, really cool. Like, you're a lovely and an amazingly talented person. I hope you realize that.
Oh my gosh, you guys are too sweet. Thank you so much. I mean, it means the world. I admire you girls so much, and I can't believe I'm talking with you on this podcast. And yeah, when I saw it was an interview you had with someone else, and you mentioned that they had brought the subject to you, and I was like, oh, I gotta talk about this.
Yeah.
I reached out. Yeah, I mean, it was so hard, even learning the post office, because we don't have a post office in my country, so even that was like
wait, okay, I'm sorry, like, let's rewind a second. Honduras doesn't have a post office, so
No.
what does that mean exactly? My mind is blown. Wow.
My husband was the same. It's funny. I mean, there is a post office, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Okay.
It's like run down. There's one office. There really isn't. You can't rely on it. It doesn't really work. You might get your letter 3-4 months later. That's how it is.
Oh my gosh.
It's terrible. It's like non-existent, basically. So
do you guys use private companies to send things to each other then, or no, I think that's not an option?
No, I mean, there's some like there's like bus companies, like transportation companies that might offer the service, but there's nothing like Amazon or things like that there. Okay. So yeah, so like for example, wedding invitations, the couple delivers them to each person.
That's by hand.
Yeah, by hand. So they'll
honestly, I wish I could do that sometimes.
Really?
Yeah, because I didn't want to get lost. You don't have the stress. You can just be like, I'm just going to go deliver all 150 of these invitations. See you in 3 weeks. Bye.
That's true. I guess that does make sense. But the thing is that over there, weddings are like 500, 700 people. So
oh my gosh.
delivering all of those.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yeah, I did a wedding of 1,000 people one time. It was like,
are you kidding?
1,100. Yeah.
It's like a small country. That's amazing.
Yeah, it is kind of funny. That does put it in perspective for us, though, Andrea, because for all the griping that we do about USPS, like, we're fortunate to have it and that it does work as well as it does, because a couple things will go missing here and there will be some hiccups. But now I'm just like, I just want to go out and hug my mailbox. How weird is that?
I think the USPS is so amazing. I can't believe the work they do. I think they're super efficient.
I do too.
Yeah.
I actually do too. I don't know. I mean, I know we like hate on the USPS sometimes, but it is pretty amazing. You can mail a letter all the way to California for like 55 cents. Like, that's crazy.
It's
crazy.
cool.
And the fact that it gets there in 3 days,
I
it's
know.
mind-blowing to me.
So if something like goes missing, I'm like, you know what? They deserve that because there's so much going through right now. Can you just, I mean, it's just crazy. It blows my mind.
Yeah. And then they're everywhere. Like, I have one in front of my house. So that's amazing. Yeah. Over there, we don't have anything. So I had to learn that too. So like your episode on shipping, I was like writing notes and I was like, wait, what is that? What is that?
Oh,
word?
yes. We got you, girl, on shipping. Don't worry.
Yeah. I was like, oh, I have to weigh this? Okay. Like, it was like a toddler learning something.
A whole new system. I know. That's one thing I just have to commend you on, Andrea, is you are such a good, like, seeker out of learning. Like, when you're like, I need to be the best, I need to get better at this. And you're like, I got books to learn about shading and I went to all these schools to learn better. I wanted to be the best. And I just have to commend you on that because I think that's such an amazing trait to have as a business owner and just as like a functioning human, is just like continue learning and just like keep bettering yourself and being like, I don't know everything. There's so much to learn. I just love that about you. And I think it's really cool. So I hope our audience takes something from that too.
I appreciate that because I get told all the time, focus. And I'm like, I can't.
I can't. I know. I understand that because I'm like, oh, I want to keep learning about this thing. And you just go down rabbit holes and, you know, but it's fun. It makes life so exciting. There's just so much to learn and to know. And it's just like you just keep getting better and better at something. And that's what's really cool. It's just like that whole journey of like making yourself a better artist or a better baker or whatever, just like getting better and better and better. It's really cool.
There was a time in my life, a few years ago, I felt like I had to decide because I kept being told, you can't do both things. They're too different, right? And I was like, I was struggling. I literally went into depression, in this type of depression where washing my hair felt like a struggle. And I couldn't sleep trying to decide, but what do I do? Because it was like, I want to do calligraphy, but I want to do cakes, and I've invested so much money in learning how to do cakes. I mean, I came to study here, and I was, you know what I mean? Like, studying abroad was like a big investment, and but then and that went on for like a few years until one day I decided, like, hell to it, I'm not gonna decide. Like, this life is too short. Why can't I do everything that I want? I'm gonna die, like, you know.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah. You made your decision, and your decision was, I'm doing both. Screw all of you.
Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna be myself. I'm not gonna suffer anymore over this decision, and I'll deal with it and screw everybody. Yeah, that's how it was pretty much.
That's what you should do. You're absolutely right. Is your life, and so I'm sure that it's like, I can relate to you so much, and you've probably heard me talk about it because it's like an ace of all trades or jack of all trades is an ace of none. And I'm like, I hate that. Stop saying it. I don't want to hear it. I'm multi-passionate. I have a lot of things that I want to do in life. I did a million different activities and extracurriculars in high school too. That's just like who I am. I was like, leave me be. I will succeed and thrive doing all the things I want to do.
It's like, no, nobody's going to tell us what to be or how to be. And the pandemic also showed us that. I mean, I think the pandemic showed everybody, shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket. Learn many things. And when the pandemic happened, I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad I did what I did, because on days where somebody didn't want calligraphy, they wanted a cake. They needed a cake urgently, and I was able to provide all of that during the lockdown. So it was great. Yeah.
Yeah. It amazes me that, I don't know, it's so cute because I think everyone in this industry, when we talk to each other in person and we finally like meet to face to face or have a phone call, there's an equal sense of like everyone fangirls over each other just as much, because it blows my mind that like we get to interview you and you're telling us, you're like, I love your podcast and I love you guys. And I'm like, how am I even deserving of like Andrea being like my fan? Because I feel like I should be her fan.
Oh, come on, stop
And
it.
I am. I totally am. Like, this has been such a fun episode. And oh my goodness, you just have so much depth too. Like, people are really gonna, I think they're just gonna love hearing your story. All right, I'll let Cami ask the last question of the episode, our official one that we've kind of been asking everybody lately.
Yeah, I guess this is our official, wrap it up question. But what goal are you hoping to accomplish during the remainder of 2021? What are you looking forward to for the rest of the year?
Wow, I think the main one is stability. We've been moving, the pandemic changed everything, and I just want to feel stable. I just want to be like, okay, this is it. We're living here and we got to make it work here. And, just get this cafe open, make enough money to pay back the debt, and get my calligraphy business also thriving. And in the calligraphy side, I really want to get better at engrossing and move more of my calligraphy work into engrossing and not so much weddings. So yeah, those are my goals.
Amazing. I can't wait to hear the updates from you throughout the rest of the year, because actually, for you guys listening, we're recording this episode at like the end of May, but it's actually not going to air until September, which is crazy.
It's so cool, you guys. You have so much to talk about.
we will have to circle back and follow up and see in 3 months' time like what things have changed. And there's a chance that it could also be like mid-August. We still have to figure out that exact date with all of the guest slots that we have. But I am sure in 3 months things are already going to be looking up, looking different, moving forward. You've got this, Andrea. You can do it. I know you can.
Yes. And Andrea, can you tell our audience where they can find you, all the places you're hanging out on the internet?
Yeah. Well, my website is www.andreareno.com. My weddings and events account is A Reno Calligraphy Cakes. And then my artwork and more calligraphy practice account is Andrea Reno Art. I had to separate those. So why do you see them?
That makes sense. All right. So we'll go ahead and do a little bit of housekeeping, you guys. So if you have questions that you would like to ask us for our Q and Cake episodes, please head to bizbirthdaybash.com/Q and Cake. You can ask your questions there. And if you've been loving this episode, please, no matter what phone you have, whatever it may be. I know that only iTunes allows you to leave reviews, which is a pain. But one of the things you can do is, no matter the phone you have, you can take a screenshot of this episode as you're listening, whatever platform you're listening on, upload it to Instagram stories. Please tag me, Cami, Biz Birthday Bash, and especially Andrea if you're listening to this episode specifically with Andrea, just to let her know that you're listening, that you appreciate the time that she spent to share her story with all of you. And if you are able to leave us an iTunes review, that would be phenomenal. That really helps us get in front of other people as well. So I think that kind of wraps it up, you guys. And Andrea, just thank you again. We are so blessed to have you here.
Oh, ladies, thank you so much. Thank you for your openness to talk to me. And I hope this helps somebody. Moving is hard, but I know they can do it. So thank you, and I'll see you on social media.
Yeah. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Hey guys, you know we share a ton of free, helpful info here on the podcast, but if you're looking to go deeper, you need our Business Sense for Creatives bundle. This is our foundational resource. We share it all. Our pricing strategies, marketing plans, our favorite print partners, real-life examples of our invoices and workflows, and so much more. Literally, it is amazing. It really is the comprehensive guide for a money-making creative biz.
So with the bundle, you'll get access to our 3 webinar replays, Pricing with Purpose, How to Be Confident When It Comes to Charging Your Worth, People and Publicity, How to Find Clients and Deliver an Awesome Experience, and lastly, Productivity and Processes, How to Run Your Business Efficiently and Get Crap Done.
And not to mention, you'll also get our 3 bonus PDF party favors. What? We've heard from students that these are worth the price of it alone. So the party favors are pricing FAQs, the SEO cheat sheet, and a mini favorite vendors guide to get you started on where to print invitations.
So just to clarify, that is not only 3 awesome video recordings, but 3 bonus PDFs as well that support the content from the videos. So I think it's a pretty good deal.
Totally. It's the best deal out there. And you have lifetime access to it, which also adds to the whole value. So
woohoo! Don't take it from us though. Take it from the hundreds of students who have learned from the bundle and have said that these were the best, most real and informative webinars that they've ever watched. We've seen students double their prices after watching these and totally skyrocket their businesses.
This is our roadmap of how we got to where we are today, so skip the mistakes and speed bumps, doing it the slow way, and let us put you on the fast track to running a creative biz like a boss and pricing for profit and not just pay.
And the best part, this resource is less than $100. Seriously, y'all, it's only $97 and it's so worth that price and much more. So go to bizbirthdaybash.com/bundle to purchase it today.